Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Today we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have quite a bit to get into, such as the Chargers. Hey, they won another meaningful game. The rest of their opponents are under 500. Can the Chargers actually close it out and clinch a playoff spot? And the Rams have sadly been eliminated from playoff contention. Their loss to Green Bay has pretty much put the nail in the coffin for their chances to repeat as Super Bowl champs. Sad, sad, sad. It's time to recap and pretty much throw the last batch of flowers into the Rams' grave. And the Clippers have been kind of under the radar as they're kind of winning games left and right as well, which is good. And USC and UCLA men's hoops are on winning streaks. And alas, USC women's hoops sadly is not undefeated anymore. But life goes on. And also San Diego State has their bowl game. Will they be able to take down the Middle Tennessee Raiders? All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you all for joining me on this Friday afternoon, Friday evening, Friday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you have made your way into episode 116 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio. You can follow IE Sports Radio on several different streaming platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at IE Sports Radio. And you can also follow them on Facebook by typing in the word IE, then sports, then radio by typing that in the search bar. They also have a website, www.iesportsradio.com, and when you go there, you'll see a Patreon link at the top, and it starts at $5 a month once you click it. This will get you a shout out from all of our shows, including this one, and higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to IESRU, the podcasting university of IE Sports Radio, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment, with the founder of IE Sports Radio, Larry B. Because for the past 8 years and counting, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we've been continuing to be by the fans and for the fans. With your help, we are ready to take the next biggest step. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. Shout out to our Patreon supporters, Bay Area Raised Apparel, Key to the Gate, Marcus Slowstreet, and a donor that wishes to remain anonymous. And with that all said and done, let us begin. So we obviously have to start off with football just because football is king. And we're going to start off with the Chargers just because they came in chronological order in terms of which game came first between the Rams and the Chargers. So the Chargers, as I mentioned in the intro, they were able to pull off the win against the Tennessee Titans. I had a little concern going into this game just because the Chargers have one of the worst run defenses out there, and Derrick Henry, as I called him, was the human wrecking ball. Now, also, Ryan Tannehill was playing this game on an injured ankle, and bless his heart, that dude was tough as nails. The Chargers needed pretty much every second to win that game, which I had a feeling that was going to be the case. I wanted them to win by more than one score, but again, it's the Chargers. They never make anything easy on themselves. So, first opening drive, after they forced the Titans to go 3-and-out, they were able to basically score a touchdown courtesy of Joshua Kelly. Joshua Kelly has actually been doing really good this season, and for all the times I've bashed him saying that he needs to fumble his way back to UCLA just because he's fumbled the ball quite a lot, I think Joshua Kelly has his swagger back. Now, can he be a running back too? That still remains to be seen. But I think he's really improved. I think of all the players that have improved from last year, I think Joshua Kelly has improved quite significantly. He's even got more bursts of speed. So I'm happy for Joshua Kelly. I want to say that was his first touchdown since week 4, I want to say. Week 4, week 5. Either way, good to see Joshua Kelly back into the end zone. But eventually, as the game went on, Ryan Tannehill's ankle kind of got, I wouldn't say it got broken, but it was just, it kept hurting him and hindering him. So eventually we also got to see Malik Willis, the backup quarterback from Liberty. Unfortunately, he wasn't cutting it. But eventually Ryan Tannehill, after he got carted back to the locker room, he was able to come back in. And again, Ryan Tannehill is as tough as nails. And eventually he led the Titans to their first touchdown of the day as Derrick Henry was able to go in off a direct snap from 5 yards out. Again, it's basically, I think that was kind of the spark that the Titans needed. I think once Ryan Tannehill came back in, they were inspired and they just said, we got to do this for our leader. Like, Ryan Tannehill is putting his ankle and his health on the line. So I'm very happy. I admired his courage and gutsiness. Eventually, that was pretty much the last score, as this was basically a punt fest or a 3-and-out fest, as neither team was unable to get another touchdown or any sort of score. And this little play right here at the end of the third, or at the end of the second quarter, this was an incredible play. I just could not believe it, and I just had to see it yet again. But for this play that was pretty much the end of the second quarter, this came courtesy of whatchamacallit. I know it wasn't Christian Fulton that intercepted it, but this interception at the end of the second quarter, it was courtesy of Bayard, as this was actually the greatest. There were two defenders in the end zone, right? And Justin Herbert was trying to throw it to Mike Williams into the end zone, but then it was eventually going to sail out of bounds. But then one guy had to made this incredible catch before it went out of bounds, and honestly, it was quite incredible. Like, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, what in the world? Kevin Byard was the one that made the interception, and it's like, my goodness, dude. And it was just so amazing. So overall, yeah. Oh, actually, no. He was the one that had the second interception. But either way, you have to see the clip to believe it. Like, there was one Titan defender that caught the ball as he was going out of bounds, and then he just pitched it to the side, and then it was basically caught, which, boy howdy, it was just a great heads-up play. At first I was like, that is just so inconvenient, but then it takes a lot of skill for that to actually, to happen, just because that's a great hook and lateral play. One guy catches it, and then he just pitches it to his teammate. So I have to give the Titans credit on that one. Eventually, the third quarter began, and just like all third quarters, or most of the third quarters this year after Week 5, the Chargers failed to get a touchdown, and it was so annoying. Like, I don't know what it is with the Chargers and their ineptitude when it comes to not getting third quarter touchdowns. Like, I don't know if it's just failing to adjust or anything of that sort, but I'm just concerned for the Chargers, because eventually they're going to be down by a significant chunk to an actually good team, and then the fourth quarter they're not going to be able to climb out of it, just like the Raiders game. But in the fourth quarter, the Titans were driving, and this was a key play. I think it was Kyle Van Noy or Chris Rumpf the second. He got a sack on Ryan Tannehill, and that pushed the field goal back 10 yards. So I think it was a 48-yard field goal as opposed to a 38-yard field goal, which, again, that's quite a 48-yard field goal is quite the significant kick, which I thought was crucial right there. It was actually 51 yards. So 51 yards. So it would have been 41 yards originally, or 42 yards, and then Tannehill got sacked, and then it just made the field goal much, much longer for Randy Bullock. Eventually, the Chargers took advantage of that missed field goal, as they got a touchdown from Austin Eckler. And they had many opportunities to put the game away. And to their credit, they forced the Titans to use their timeouts. And eventually the Titans got one final drive, and they were able to take advantage of it. Now, I'll give a lot of credit to Brandon Staley. I know some people were bashing him for saying, why is Brandon Staley calling timeouts? But he was calling timeout late on that Titans drive to basically give his quarterback another chance. Just because if the Chargers don't get enough time to get the game-winning quarterback, or the game-winning touchdown, then the Titans might actually want to go for two. And if they get that, then boy howdy, then the Chargers are in a bunch of hot water. To my surprise, the Titans, they got the touchdown from Ryan Tannehill. Like, God bless that man's soul. He jumped up over the pile and reached across the plane for the score. And then they decided to kick the extra point. Now, I'm not knocking this. I'm not going to knock this. I have no complaints. But there were some questionable decisions that the Titans made. Like, they didn't have Derrick Henry in on 3rd and 2 when they easily could have gotten 2 yards from Derrick Henry, because the Chargers have one of the worst run defenses. And most of the Titans' third downs were just, they didn't include Derrick Henry. And not going for 2 when you could have put the Chargers big on their heels really was very questionable. I think Staley would have gone for 2 in that situation, regardless of whether he had timeouts or not, or whatever the situation was. Because you play to win the game. You don't play to go to overtime. You play to win the game. So eventually it was 14-14. The Chargers needed one last game-winning drive, as they had about 48 seconds to do so, and eventually they did get the game-winning drive, as Justin Herbert made some great passes, one to Keenan Allen and the other to Mike Williams, which, again, Herbert, the pass to Mike Williams was so impressive, as basically Herbert was throwing on the run, and I don't want to say he sidearm slinged it to Mike Williams, and to credit Mike Williams, he stayed inbound, caught the ball, and he was still in bounds. No part of him touched out of bounds, and it was a very good play. And keep in mind, the Chargers had no timeouts. They spent all their timeouts because they want to stop the clock, and they made sure to give their quarterback enough time to have the game-winning drive. So eventually they brought out Dicker the kicker, or Cameron Dicker, and he was able to nail a 43-yard field goal. Funny thing is, and I keep saying this, is that the Chargers' biggest bright spot for their team hasn't really been their offense or defense. It's been their special teams and their kicking. Normally, kicking has been the Chargers' Achilles heel, as they keep either missing field goals to try to send it to overtime or win the game, or they just have blunders where their kicks get blocked and eventually it winds up nipping them in the butt. But Cameron Dicker was able to kick the game-winning field goal with about 4 seconds left, and the Titans just weren't unable to get the lateral going. So the Chargers won, and they're inching closer and closer to making the playoffs. So this week the Chargers play the Indianapolis Colts on Monday Night Football, and here's the thing. The Colts, they're coming off of a loss, but it's not just any loss. They lost a 33-point lead to the Minnesota Vikings. Yes, a 33-point lead, which is now the biggest comeback in NFL history. So I'm not going to get too much into that just because that's not SoCal. Now, for this game, the Colts are going to be starting Nick Foles. So they're starting good old jolly St. Nick Foles, or as most people call them, Big Dick Nick. Excuse me for saying that. Hopefully I don't have to put the explicit tag on there. But anyway, For the Chargers, this is going to be quite the tricky matchup. Like, Nick Foles, I don't even remember the last time he started a game. Wasn't it back in, like, his Chicago days, which was, like, 2 seasons ago? So, I was very surprised that the Colts still had Nick Foles. I'm surprised they had Nick Foles, but I guess they signed him just to be a part of then Frank Reich's system, because Frank Reich eventually got shown the door. But for the Chargers, they really have to, if they could win this game, that would put them closer and closer. Believe it or not, the Chargers can actually clinch a spot in the playoffs, as all they need is a New York Jets loss, a Raiders loss to the Steelers, and a Patriots loss to the Bengals. And they also have to win as well. So, believe it or not, the Chargers are getting very closer to making it to the playoffs. So far, the Jets did lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars last night, 19-3. And tomorrow, the Raiders and Steelers play one another on New Year's Eve. And also, do the Bengals play on Christmas Day? I want to say they do. No, they don't. They play on Saturday. So the Bengals play the Patriots at New England at 10 a.m., and then the Raiders and Steelers play one another at 5:15 p.m., all of which is Pacific time, by the way. And then the Chargers just have to win their game against the Colts, and that's how the Chargers can make the playoffs. So even if the Chargers don't make the playoffs this week, a win this week would put them ever so close to it advancing into the playoffs. And that would be huge, just because their last 3 games are against sub-500 teams. They have the Colts, which have an interim coach. They have Jeff Saturday as their head coach. And then they also have the Rams, which are completely broken, and then they've got the Broncos. Now, of the 3 that concern me, I think the one that definitely concerns me is the Broncos game, just because the Chargers struggle more often than not when playing at Denver. I don't know why, I don't know how, but for me, I think that one really concerns me, and I'm hoping the Chargers have a spot locked up before they have to play Broncos country. But we're not going to look that far ahead. We're just going to go into their game against the Colts. So there's not going to be Jonathan Taylor as well. Jonathan Taylor's out as he hurt his ankle, and he is out for the remainder of the year. He's on IR, so that's the good news for the Chargers. The bad news is that they still have other running backs, and the Chargers still have one of the worst run defenses in the league. So don't think the human battering ram in Jonathan Taylor is going to be going away, because the Colts still have other running backs. I want to say it's like Zach Moss is going to be their running back 1 with Jonathan Taylor out. And he was pretty significant back when he was with Buffalo, but I digress on that. So if there's ever a time for the Chargers, and you also got to remember, this is week 16 that we're entering, and you also got to remember that last year in week 16, the Chargers wound up losing to the Houston Texans at Houston, which was a complete blunder. That, I think, was what cost the Chargers the playoffs. And again, if they had won that game and they won against Denver, they wouldn't even needed to be playing on prime time against the Raiders. I think they would have had a playoff spot locked up, regardless of whether it was the 6 seed or 7 seed. But the Chargers really have to take care of business, and they just can't underestimate anybody. Granted, last year was a whole different perspective when the Chargers had like Austin Eckler, Joey Bosa, Derwin James, and all those other guys out. But now the Chargers have no excuses this time. They have their receiving duo back in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Derwin James is pretty much on the mend returning. I don't think Joey Bosa is going to return. We'd have to see like a significant designation from IR, and I have heard that the Chargers have not returned him right away. So again, I haven't heard anything regarding Joey Bosa's return. He would definitely make a great return for the Chargers, and it would help because Khalil Mack is getting double teamed left and right, and the poor dude, if he's able to get a sack, then God bless that man's soul after getting double-teamed. But it's good that Kyle Van Noy has been stepping up, Morgan Fox has been stepping up, and I think Drew Tranquill has also been stepping up. So for the Chargers, they're starting to get healthy at the right time, and they really need to close out this playoff spot sooner rather than later. Now, as for the other scenarios, the Chargers can only control what they can control. I could see the Bengals beating the Patriots, even though it's going to be at Foxborough. But the Raiders-Steelers game, that's a pick-em right there. But either way, the Chargers can't leave anything to chance. As much as I don't want to see other teams helping out the Chargers in terms of making the playoffs, they have to. So, as for the Colts-Chargers game, it's going to be in Indianapolis, and it's going to be negative. From what I heard from Pat McAfee, it is going to be negative 9 degrees. It's so far negative 9 degrees, but I hear it's going to be pretty nippy for the Chargers Colts game. But I have the Chargers beating the Colts, and this is probably going to sound like a crazy score, but I have the Chargers winning 28-17. Now, most of the Chargers games that they've won have been one-score games. The only exception was the Houston Texans, but I think the Chargers could win by more than one score. They have to. It's the Colts. They're coached by Jeff Saturday. They're starting Nick Foles. It's gotten so bad that they're playing a quarterback who hasn't seen or who hasn't started in over a year, if not maybe 2 years. I'd have to go back and check when Nick Foles' last start was, but the Chargers have to win by more than one score. I would not be surprised if the Chargers played down to their competition and had to grind out another one-score game, but this is the Colts. I really think that the Chargers should win by more than one score. They have to win in general. I just want to see them win in general. I don't care how much they win by. I just want to see a W for the Chargers just because they are so close. It's like the NFL is literally trying to hand the Chargers a playoff spot. They're currently 6th in the playoff seed. I forgot to mention, the Patriots also lost on Sunday. The Jets also lost on Sunday. And we'll get into that Patriots loss a little bit later. But Patriots lost on Sunday, Jets lost on Sunday, and the Dolphins lost last Saturday. So the Chargers moved ahead of the Dolphins because they have the head-to-head. So the Chargers are the 6th seed, Miami is the 7th seed, Patriots are the 8th seed, and Jets are the 9th seed in terms of teams with 7 or more wins that are still in the wildcard hunt. And also the Ravens are the 5th seed, which I wouldn't count out the Chargers moving up to the 5th seed, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that. I mean, if the Chargers do move up to the 5th seed and they do draw whoever wins the AFC South, probably between Jacksonville and Tennessee, I will have no qualms with that. I think the Chargers would match up better against Jacksonville and or Tennessee. But probably Jacksonville most likely, just because they've seen the Jaguars, and against the Jaguars, they lost a significant chunk of their stars, and they didn't even have all their stars. They didn't have Keenan Allen. They didn't have Mike Williams wasn't. Oh no, they still had Mike Williams. It's just that they didn't have Keenan Allen, and they didn't have a few of their other guys. And hopefully, the Chargers can get hopefully they can get Derwin James back next season, or not next season, this season, or if not this week, and hopefully Joey Bosa can make a quick return as well, quick and healthy return. And don't rule out Rashawn Slater, the left tackle, being back, because if he does come back, then that is a significant boost for the offensive line. So again, it's just all about possibilities of if the Chargers will be able to have some of their key guys back, because again, this was supposed to be a big year for the Chargers, and this was supposed to be their calling, and then they just kept getting hampered by injuries, one after another. Even Herbert still isn't 100%. So for the Chargers, they have to close out the deal. They have to basically, and for their next 2 games, they should be able to win them on paper. The Broncos game is winnable, but again, winning at Denver is pretty tough. Now, I would not be surprised to see bettors take the Broncos in that game over the Chargers, but overall, I think they got to get the win this week. I don't care who's starting at quarterback. All they can do is control what they have, and hopefully Derwin James is still making progress, and we have yet to see the update on the Chargers injury report. But overall, I think it would be quite nice if you ask me. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the Chargers this week. As again, Brandon Staley said Derwin James is back at practice. He was limited due to a quadricep injury. The only DNP for the Chargers on Thursday was Keemon Hall. Everyone else was limited or a full participant, which included Trey Pipkins, which was a full participant. Chris Rumph was full participant, and Jamari Salyer was a full participant. And then Sebastian Joseph Day, Derwin James, and Bryce Callahan were limited. So that's basically the gist of the Chargers injury report from yesterday. I'll also say this about the Chargers defense, is that Alohi Gilman has kind of been a little bit of an unsung hero, as he's come up big defensively for the Chargers. He's either forced tackles for loss, or he's forced fumbles, or any of that sort. Granted, the Chargers don't recover these fumbles, but yeah, I think Alohi Gilman has played a significant role. And also have to give a shout to Nasir Adderley, as he had an interception on Tannehill in that game. So I guess I should also mention how Justin Herbert did. He did not play his best game. He got sacked multiple times. He had 2 interceptions, but he led the game-winning drive, and honestly, that's all that really matters. I mean, it wasn't his best game by far. I mean, so wasn't the Broncos game, but hey, the Chargers, he was able to lead the Chargers to a win, so I don't care what his numbers are, as long as all that matters is the win. Like, he could have thrown for only less than 200 yards, and I still would have been satisfied by his performance, just because he led the Chargers to a game-winning drive. And that's what I think people miss when it comes to the Chargers and Justin Herbert. As long as Herbert is leading the Chargers down the field, with no timeouts, mind you, I think that should still be counted as something. So that's going to do it for the Chargers portion of the show. I guess I should also mention that Derwin James and Khalil Mack are both Pro Bowlers, which is awesome. I don't really care for the Pro Bowl all that much, just because, well, it doesn't really have any significance. So I'm sorry to those that like the Pro Bowl, but I don't care for the Pro Bowl. Like, especially if the said team is playing in the playoffs still, or the Super Bowl. Heaven forbid that will be the Chargers, but I digress. Alright, so that's going to do it for the Chargers portion of the show. Alright, now we got to rip off the Band-Aid. We got to do the Rams. So the Rams on Monday Night Football, they played the Green Bay Packers, and that game went about as well as I thought it would be. The Packers packed the Rams and pretty much socked it to them, as we welcome Courtney Harden in the chat room. He says, happy holidays. You too, man. And also, shout out to Larry B. He popped in the chat room earlier. He was like, it's our boy Teran. And I joked. I had a little joke and said, where? But a shout out to Larry B. and Courtney Harden in this live Spreaker chat room. If you all are listening live on Spreaker, you can make a whatchamacallit, a Spreaker account, and then you can interact with me in the chat room, just like Courtney is right now. He says, T-Rod, have to set up an episode soon. Oh yeah, definitely. I'll be glad to jump on a show. So back over to the Rams. All right, Rams lost to the Packers 24-12, which is like, yeah, that's about. I was actually close with this score. I said the Rams were going to lose 24-21, so but I was actually spot on with the score. I just got the 1 and the 2 flipped backwards. So, oops. So technically, I wasn't off. I kind of got the right score, kinda. Okay, all right. Jokes aside. I didn't see this game just because I was doing set point. However, I kind of figured it was going to go this way. I knew the Packers were going to beat the Rams because the Rams hardly ever win at Green Bay. They never win at Lambeau Field. I don't know what the deal is. I understand for Matthew Stafford's sake, but for everyone else and for the Rams in general, Green Bay has always been their kryptonite. And yeah. So, for the Rams, their Super Bowl repeat aspirations have come to a close as they are eliminated from playoff contention, which is it was bound to happen. And I didn't really get to see, again, I didn't get to really see this game all that much. All I can tell you is that the Packers never trailed. The Packers never trailed, and despite some good plays from the Rams, from Baker Mayfield, and from some of the defense, it just wasn't all that great. Like, the Rams needed to play perfect football if they want to win this game. Because even though Green Bay is complete dog water, they have Aaron Rodgers, and that dude's eventually going to be heading down to Ohio for the Hall of Fame. So, overall, yeah. Again, it doesn't help that the Rams did not have Matthew Stafford, though Baker Mayfield wasn't overly terrible. They didn't have Cooper Kupp, no Allen Robinson, no Aaron Donald to try to force sacks on Aaron Rodgers. And they lost, and it kept getting worse. The Rams lost Brian Allen, their center, I think it was a hamstring or calf injury, and they also lost Ben Skoranek to a hamstring injury as well. So both those two, they're out for the season as well. And I just got word that Aaron Donald is shut down for the remainder of the season. So no Aaron Donald for Week 17 when the Chargers play the Rams at SoFi. Notice how I didn't say the Rams play at the Chargers, just because it's kind of a neutral site. Anyway, so the Rams, they have 3 games remaining. They have no playoff aspirations. Is it worth playing at this point? I mean, yes, it is, kinda. So, for the Rams, I don't know what to say for the Rams. They're playing the Broncos on Christmas Day, and that game is also going to be televised on Nickelodeon. I think that game between the Rams and the Broncos should have a parental guidance, just because no one wants to see that dog water football matchup. I mean, at least we'll get to see one. Okay, I wouldn't say Baker Mayfield and Russell Wilson aren't exciting quarterbacks, but both of them have pretty much they've pretty much been underachieving. And for Baker, it's not his fault. Like, he was dealt a bad hand when it came to being with the Browns, and then the Browns just gave him his walking papers. Then he went to Carolina. Carolina showed him the door after P.J. Walker and Sam Darnold outshined him. And then Baker had that amazing game where they beat the Raiders. I'm sorry, Larry. And that was pretty much that right there. So I don't want to say this is going to be a boring game, but you look at how many players are out from each team. It's quite a bit, especially the Rams. I hate having to use the injury excuse, but they lost so many guys on the offensive line. It was even worse starting out. Like, they had so many guys out to start the season on the offensive line. And then the injuries, it just kept getting worse injury-wise. Cooper Kupp went down. Matthew Stafford was injured, but then came back and then got injured again. Allen Robinson had a season-ending injury. Aaron Donald had a high ankle sprain, and now he's shut down for the season, which makes total sense. There's no point of rolling Aaron Donald out there just so he could make that injury worse. And again, with no playoff aspirations, the Rams don't need to really make a final push for these games. I think for Baker Mayfield's sake, I think it's only significant for him to play these games just so he can learn Sean McVay's system, just in case he comes back to playing for the Rams. Now, there was word that Matthew Stafford is not going to retire. Matthew Stafford is definitely coming back next year, which is awesome because Stafford got paid all that money and there's no way in heck he should be retiring. But with that spinal cord injury, that's some scary stuff right there. So I'm happy he'll be back next season for the Rams' sake. I just think that he'll need to be a little bit more careful. I don't know what this is going to mean for Baker Mayfield. I think he'll either have to embrace being the role of a backup, or he's just going to have to go elsewhere. I imagine the Falcons could probably want a quarterback just because they've got Desmond Ridder and, Marcus Mariota, who's not even with the team anymore. But back to Baker Mayfield, I think this would be a great little dress rehearsal for him if he were to stay on the Rams and if he were to excel in these last 3 games. Just because the Rams are playing, their last 2 games, the Rams are playing 2 playoff hopefuls in the Chargers and the Seahawks. Their game against the Broncos isn't going to really mean much. It's just going to be a welcome back to facing us, Russell Wilson. And here's the thing for the Broncos. They also don't have anything to play for, and I'm surprised they're not shutting down their players for the rest of the season. Just because they paid Russell Wilson all that money, and they don't want to, get him more injured, because he just came back from a concussion. He missed the second half of the Chiefs-Broncos game, and then he also missed the Cardinals game last weekend, so I don't know if the Broncos will rush some of their star players back, but again, if the Broncos were wise, they would shut down Wilson for the rest of the season, as well as most of their star players. But for the Rams, other than Bobby Wagner and maybe Jalen Ramsey, I mean, Jalen Ramsey has not had a great season. Like, he's been getting cooked like Eli Apple was in the Super Bowl last year. But overall, can the Rams defense really keep up with the Broncos offense, which surprisingly has scored more than 20 points? It still remains to be seen. I think this would be a significant game for Bobby Wagner and for Jalen Ramsey. I mean, Ramsey's probably going to have to go one-on-one with Jerry Jeudy. But with how cooked Jalen Ramsey has been gotten in terms of facing other receivers, I don't know if that's going to be a favorable matchup. So, this is going to be a tough one to predict. Can we both give these teams losses for the Broncos' sake of being the Chargers' rival, and for the Rams' sake of their fans saying, can we just forfeit the rest of these games? I have to pick a winner, though. I'm going to say the Rams win. Yes, call me crazy. I think the Rams can win. I'm going to say they win 13-10. I think it's going to be the world's ugliest game, but I have this strange feeling that Baker Mayfield is going to lead them down the field to either a game-winning field goal or a game-winning touchdown drive. As, I don't know, the only significant receivers that the Rams have are Van Jefferson and Tyler Higbee. As Higbee, well, he's a tight end, but yeah. And Larry says 13-10 because of some weird fluke plays off a kickoff return. Well, I think it's just going to be a defensive struggle. Both teams are going to struggle offensively, and honestly, it's like I don't see how this is going to be a high-scoring affair. The Rams are missing so many key pieces offensively, and the Broncos have been fortunate to basically get 20 back-to-back 20-plus point games. If anything, I would say the Broncos would win, but I basically am picking the Rams in my whatchamacallit league, not my Pick'ems league, but my Power 5 league, where you basically select the bet line of which teams are going to be picked. So I'm taking the Rams minus 2.5. So there's that right there. Or plus 2.5, because the Broncos are favored. Realistically, I think the Broncos are going to win just because of defense, but I have this weird feeling the Rams are going to fluke their way to a win. I don't know how it's going to be, but they're just going to find some odd reason to win. Heck, I could probably even go less than 13-10. I could probably say maybe 10-9. So there's a reason why this game is being relegated to Nickelodeon, just because no one in their right mind is really going to pay attention to it. And it would be, it's also going to be on CBS, but it's going to be the biggest disgrace if it were to be on CBS. And also, most people are probably going to pay attention to the NBA, sadly enough. But yeah, I have the Rams winning 13-10. It's going to be low scoring, and it's going to be the world's ugliest game. I might watch it. I'm certain my brother's going to watch it, just because he's going to pick his poison between watching the Lakers or the Clippers, or the Lakers or the Rams, just because he's a fan of both teams. And this one starts at 1:30, and Yeah, the Rams game starts at 1:30, and for the Lakers game, which will be on Christmas Day, that will start at 11:30 a.m. So maybe my brother will be watching the Lakers. Then, if he gets bored, he'll watch the Rams. But he'll probably watch the Rams in the second half. So Larry says it's going to be on ESPN Deportes, and it's going to be on ESPN4. Oh, now that Larry mentions primetime, the Rams actually do have one more primetime game. On Sunday night, next Sunday night, they play the Chargers. Oh my God. And I was even saying that this game is going to get flexed out, but they can only flex games out of primetime 1 week in advance. So they would have probably flexed out Rams Chargers right this week. And I was thinking they were going to flex it out for Raiders Niners or Seahawks Jets, but I don't even think that those games are going to make it. I mean, the Seahawks are falling apart. The Raiders are barely hanging on by a thread. And do we really want to see the Niners muscle their way to victory? No. No offense, and this is no offense to like Raiders, Seahawks, Niners, and Jets fans, but I don't think those games are going to make it to being flexed. But we'll see what happens. Like again, you can only flex games out 1 week in advance, 1 or 2 weeks in advance, and eventually we will be getting a verdict on if the Rams and Chargers are going to get flexed out of prime time. Because if I remember correctly, when the Chargers beat the Falcons, I found out like 13 days in advance that the Chiefs Chargers were going to flex out the Steelers and the Bengals. So I imagine the Rams Chargers game would have been flexed out right about now. So, and who knows? Maybe we'll see the Rams get humiliated on primetime against their little brother. So Larry says NBC is going to play a Christmas movie instead. Well, that's next year on New Year's Day, not Christmas Day. So if anything, they should play a Christmas movie on this week's Sunday Night Football between the Bucs and the Cardinals, two sub 500 teams. So yes, NBC should play a Christmas movie instead this week. As we welcome Adam Karnick in the chat room, he says, hope California is still sunny. The Midwest is brutally cold. Yes, in Southern California it is sunny, so I hope everyone is staying warm and staying safe. So, well, and for the sake of Chargers Rams still being on primetime, I think the reason why they'll probably keep it on primetime is because it's two LA teams. It's basically the battle for LA, even though I think the Rams have won that battle for LA for the time being. But but going into the future is that the Rams have a grim future when it comes to their pick, with the lack of picks and their salary cap space and whatnot. So yeah. But overall, that's basically it for the Rams. Again, both teams are probably going to win in ugly fashion, and then we'll get the Injury Bowl next week. We'll get the true Injury Bowl between the Rams and Chargers next week. I would have bet that if the Chargers were not in playoff contention, I think NBC would have flexed out Rams Chargers. But since Chargers are still in playoff contention and it's still LA versus LA, then I guess they're going to keep it. All right, that's it for that's basically going to close the book on the NFL. Let's jump on over to some college football, as there's actually going to be college football happening in Southern California. Huzzah! As we basically are going to get San Diego State taking on the Middle Tennessee Raiders. So San Diego State is playing Middle Tennessee in the Easy Post Hawaii Bowl, which will be on Christmas Eve, which is tomorrow. And this will be nationally televised on ESPN, so yay! But for the Aztecs, they're playing Middle Tennessee. Both teams are 7-5, and San Diego State, the season is almost over for for both these teams. Thank the heavens, as Larry continues to poke fun of all the Sunday night football jokes, or the Sunday night football game jokes, which, bravo, sir. But back to San Diego State, Middle Tennessee. For this one, I'm still going to go with San Diego State winning 17-14. I don't care how they win. It's going to probably be an ugly fashion. 17-14 is my predicting score, just because this is San Diego State we're talking about here. San Diego State never makes it easy. The only thing that they've shined on is defense, and maybe special teams. But other than that, I just see them being in this ugly game against Middle Tennessee. And hopefully it's an ugly game that's in favor for them. The last time we saw San Diego State play, they played about almost a month ago, where they lost to Air Force 13-3. Ugh. Though Air Force is pretty good. Like, we can't disregard them. They had 9 wins on the season. But for San Diego State, I have them winning 17-14. I'm hoping Jalen Maiden is able to have himself a game. He's a junior, and I don't know what San Diego State's future is going to look like, just because I don't know if they're going to get any significant quarterback that's going to carry them. Like, Maiden might actually be the guy going forward. And if that's the case, just roll with him. Don't, try to fish in the transfer portal. I mean, I was kind of going to tweet out this joke saying DJ Uiagalelei to San Diego State, but I don't know. I think it would be cool to see DJ Uiagalelei go to San Diego State just because he is in the transfer portal. However, it's like, can he really turn San Diego State into a contender? No. Yeah, San Diego State, even if they had DJ Uiagalelei, they're not going to go to no college football playoff, that's for sure. But if DJ Uiagalelei goes to San Diego State, then I'll be happy. DJ Uiagalelei comes back home to California, though he will be going to San Diego instead of being at Bellflower. But overall, San Diego State, I think rolling with Jalen Maiden is the good game plan going forward. And even if they get Uiagalelei, then he'll probably just be the backup, unless, of course, Maiden is significantly struggling. Just because it's been a quarterback carousel for San Diego State this season. I think they've had to rotate between multiple quarterbacks. They've had 6 different, not 6 different quarterbacks play, but I think they've had 4 or 5 different quarterbacks play this season. It's rather interesting, if you ask me. And I think Jalen Maiden is the guy, because they actually got a quarterback from the transfer portal, Braxton Burmeister, who transferred from, I think it was Virginia Tech. And he laid a goose egg, so they went with Jalen Maiden, and Jalen Maiden had that amazing one game I think it was his first game that he had, and I think it was against Fresno State, which I really got to bring it up. I have to bring this up, which sadly beat San Diego State in ugly fashion. But for San Diego State, at least their defense is still solid, especially since they're getting a good someone I covered in Shin Brennan. This dude was a powerhouse at Los Alamitos, and he was just named to the All-Orange County second-team defense, which is nice and all. So hopefully San Diego State does pull out the win, but I have them winning 17-14 on Saturday against Middle Tennessee, and hopefully they can become the first of 3 bowl game SoCal teams to bring home the dub. Because if not, we're not going to allow them to come back to California. They could just live in Hawaii with the Hawaii football team. I'm just kidding. That's mean. But good luck to the Aztecs. Speaking of quarterbacks and in Southern California, so for UCLA, they managed to land a quarterback in terms of signing day. They managed to land Dante Bell, who actually had originally committed to Oregon, but now he flipped his commitment, and now he's going to enroll at UCLA, or he's committed to UCLA, as from what I've seen, he is the number 3 recruit in the nation. I want to say that's in terms of quarterbacks, but I did see that he was number 3 in the nation, and that is huge for UCLA, just because many UCLA fans were clamoring Dante to LA, or Dante to UCLA. It's like, will he really go there? And he was able to go, and he eventually did commit, which was awesome sauce. This was reported by James H. Williams, who covers UCLA football, which is nice and all. He's also the assistant sports editor for the Orange County Register, which is cool. And he's just an all-around good guy, down-to-earth guy. So UCLA is one of 15 teams that has at least one 5-star recruit. USC is another, which they have Malachi Nelson and Makai Lemon, which I think that's pretty cool if you ask me. Yes, indubitably. And then, to the dismay of USC fans, Oregon managed to land Mateo Uiagalelei, DJ's little brother. I say little, as in younger of the two, but he's big, as in he plays tight end and edge rusher, as he'll be heading to Oregon, which really, it didn't really sit well with me, as sadly Oregon landed Mateo Uiagalelei, and now USC fans are basically they basically have a little regret. And some are saying that USC were big losers in terms of signing day. Yes, they don't have the top 10 recruiting class, but they still have the number one recruit in Malachi Nelson. So it is what it is. Like, people can say what they want. They could say that USC was the biggest loser in terms of signing day. I don't think that in any way, shape, or form. And if anyone who says that, you're getting the dumb of the week. If I find your tweet and I see that USC was the biggest loser in terms of signing day, you are going to be instant dumb of the week. I'm not going to hold back. You can't say that not landing the number one recruit in the nation and his top wide receiver is the biggest loser of signing day. I'm sorry, but you have to have a better argument for me than lack of 5-star athletes signing. Just please don't say that. Like, if you do, I will find you and you will be put on blast on this show. But all that aside, back to UCLA. Good for Dante Bell for signing with UCLA, and that's significant just because DTR is out the door. I wouldn't say out the door. That's a harsh thing to say. But he's basically done with UCLA. He's going to probably be playing professionally. Hence the word professionally. I didn't say the NFL, but I don't know if he's going to be playing professionally. I mean, isn't he like 23, 24 years old? So, yeah. What would kind of make up for Mateo Uiagalelei not committing to USC would be Deuce Robinson committing to USC. But from what I'm seeing is that Deuce Robinson, one of the nation's biggest tight ends, who is the tight end coming out of Pinnacle High School in Phoenix, Arizona, they're saying that he's going to Georgia. I hope that is not correct. I hope he proves everyone wrong, and I hope he commits to USC. And it doesn't look like he has committed just yet. But this dude is 6'6", and I'm trying to find his numbers as we speak. But this dude was just this dude was a beast. And from what I'm seeing is that he had like multiple big time numbers. I really want to find Deuce Robinson's numbers, but overall he was significant in terms of his season, and I hope USC lands Deuce Robinson. So we're going to take ourselves a quick little break. When we come back, we're going to discuss some NBA and all sorts of other things. So keep it locked here. You are listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Some say that Indiana is just a flyover state. Flatlands and cornfields, barns and country roads. What if I told you Indiana is the crossroads of America? What if I told you in all other states, basketball is just basketball? In Indiana, basketball is life. Crowded high school basketball gyms on a Friday night, and every barn with a basketball rim and a frayed, worn-out net. If you're interested in the heartbeat of America, and if you're interested in sports, if you have Hoosier running through your veins, the Crossroads Pod with Aaron X is made for you. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Each and every week, the Crossroad Pod covers all of Indiana sports. The pride of the horseshoe of the Indianapolis Colts. The blue-collar gold swagger of the Indiana Pacers. The relentless pursuit of the sixth banner for the Indiana Hoosiers. The swing of the hammer of the Purdue Boilermakers. The swoop of the Cardinals of Ball State. The summoning of the echoes of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. The growl of the Bulldogs of Butler. The intensity of an Indiana fever. The chop of the Indianapolis Indians. At the Crossroads Pod, if it is Indiana, we've got you covered. More than cornfields. More than country back roads. The Crossroads of America. Join me, Aaron X, every week. It's nothing but net.
Back with segment number 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Sorry about the quick little rushing of the Deuce Robinson getting committed and whatnot. Someone knocked on my door and basically they just told me about something, just a heads up on something, which yeah, I guess, but I wish you had dropped off by a little bit later. But anyway, you can check out all of those amazing shows, such as the Crossroads Pod with Aaron X, as well as Let's Whine About DMV Sports with Mike Pat. As Mike, once again, he actually popped in the chat room. He says, Teran, I'm just in time for the break. I'm here just in time for the break. And yes, I apologize, Mike, if you basically had to listen to the commercials, as I had someone knock on my door and inform me about something, but I shoot him out. Anyway, that's enough of football talk right there. Let's jump on over to some basketball talk, as USC and UCLA are basically, they're doing great, and I'm happy for both UCLA and USC men's hoops, as UCLA has won 8 in a row, while USC has won 6 in a row, which is really awesome sauce. Your UCLA just beat UC Davis 81-54, but their impressive wins came last weekend, as they actually beat Kentucky in the CBS Sports Classic 63-53, and they also stomped on Maryland 87-60. Yikes. So UCLA, like I said, they've won 8 in a row. They're looking so much better after they lost to Baylor and Illinois that one weekend. So UCLA closes out the month of December, not this Friday, but the next Friday against Washington State. They resume Pac-12 play as they play Washington State at Washington State, and then UCLA starts off the new calendar year by playing Washington at Washington. So, and then following that, they play USC at Pauley Pavilion on the 5th of January. So, good stuff for UCLA, and I'm happy they're doing great just because, well, they have high expectations this year. USC, on the other hand, they pulled off a big win last Sunday as they managed to beat Auburn 74-71. Now, that was a huge win for them. Quite big for them just because that was their first ranked win of the season. And granted, Auburn already lost prior to that, lost to USC. They lost to Memphis of all teams. But USC winning is just as significant just because that's still a pretty good Auburn team, and to beat them while they're ranked is quite nice. And you got to remember that USC lost to Tennessee and Wisconsin, and they also had that ugly loss to Florida Gulf Coast. However, USC is starting to hum along quite nicely as they actually beat Colorado State 73-64, which was significant right there. Oh, I mean, it wasn't too big, but Colorado State is a solid team from the Mountain West. I mean, they're not on the level of San Diego State, but it's still a good win regardless. And they've won 6 in a row, and they are nearing undefeated status in the month of December. I know they only played 6 matches, but it is what it is. So USC will return to action next Friday when they play Washington on ESPN2 at Washington. And then they have Washington State on Sunday. So basically the Pac-12 Southern California schools are on the road against the Washington schools. So there's that right there. And it's good to see that USC is starting to get back on track. And they had some expectations. They started off as one of the outside looking in top 25 teams, and then that Florida Gulf Coast loss was just so ugly, and then they started to get back on track. They started to pick up the pieces, and I think they're eventually going to make some noise in Pac-12 play. Can they pull off a significant win? We'll see. And then as for San Diego State, they beat their baby brother, UC San Diego, on Tuesday, 62-46. Next Wednesday, they are back at it as they will begin Mountain West Conference play when they host Air Force. And then next Saturday, they will be heading down to Sin City to take on UNLV. So, San Diego State, they're 9-3. So, that's a solid record. They did lose to St. Mary's, which was a tough loss right there. And then they also lost to Arkansas and Arizona in tough fashion. The Arkansas loss was kind of the loss that they should not have lost. But it is what it is. They're better off losing than losing when it truly matters, aka conference play and the NCAA tournament. Should they make it? But for San Diego State, I think they'll be fine. So far, in terms of the Mountain West Conference, New Mexico, UNLV, Utah State, they've kind of been the top dogs. As all 3 of those teams that I just mentioned, they have a combined 1 loss. And New Mexico is undefeated. They're actually one of 3 teams that are undefeated, as well as Purdue and UConn. Yes, I am not kidding you. New Mexico, despite not being ranked, they are one of 3 teams that are undefeated. So get a little bit of a golf clap right there, New Mexico. Congrats on being undefeated, even though you're not Southern California. Soon, hence the word soon, San Diego State is going to pop that bubble, that undefeated bubble, if not Colorado State. But anyway, that's basically going to do it for San Diego State, USC, and UCLA men's hoops. I guess I'll make note of the Big West Conference just because, well, it's still in its infancy stages as they approach non-conference play is officially over unless I'm missing a match right there. Hawaii. Okay, well, that's not Southern California. Hawaii is still playing a non-conference play, but most of the SoCal teams are pretty much done with non-conference play as Long Beach State's done with non-conference play. UC Santa Barbara is done with non-conference play. UC Irvine is done with non-conference play. Riverside is done with non-conference play. Cal Poly is done with non-conference play. Fullerton is done with non-conference play. UC San Diego, despite not being eligible for the Big West or for the NCAA tournament, they're done with non-conference play. So pretty much everyone is done with non-conference play. So Big West Conference play is going to be really real as it starts on the 29th, which is next Thursday. So may the best SoCal team win in the Big West Conference. So jumping over to the West Coast Conference with San Diego, Pepperdine, and LMU. Pepperdine sadly lost a tough one to Hawaii in the tournament that they were participating in. I want to say it was the Hawaii tournament. Yes, it's the Hawaiian Airlines Diamond Head Classic, as they lost to Hawaii 76-70. They will play George Washington tonight on ESPN2. So sadly, that was a tough loss for the Waves. But it's all good. Hawaii's a good team. I think it's not too bad of a loss. And I expect Hawaii to contend in the Big West Conference. I just hope that Santa Barbara kind of knocks them off their high horse. Or in this case, their high tree. And San Diego, they're 7-7. They just recently lost to Cal State Northridge. They also beat UC Riverside on the road. So they split their Big West Conference two-step. So yeah, San Diego is 7-7, which is not ideal, but it's not overly terrible. But yeah, San Diego is good. San Diego has some work to do in terms of the West Coast Conference. And then the one team that is actually exceeding expectations in the West Coast Conference in terms of the SoCal teams is LMU, as LMU is 10-4, and they have won their last two games in a row as they beat Tulsa 76-64, and they beat Cleveland State 70-59, which the Cleveland State win isn't all that great. The Tulsa win isn't all that great. This isn't the Michael Ruffin days. This is now. But they've won 4 of their last 5 as they kick off conference play against Portland. So we'll see if LMU can keep up their hot start. San Diego heads down to St. Mary's to take on the Gales. And then I imagine Pepperdine plays... They don't play Gonzaga. They play... Oh, no, they do play Gonzaga to start off conference play. Yikes. San Diego and Pepperdine have such a tough opening. I mean, we'll see what LMU can bring to the table against Portland, but I think LMU is probably going to be the one that starts out 1-0. Hopefully. Like, in terms of the West Coast Conference, perennially, none of those 3 teams that I mentioned are really good in the West Coast Conference. I mean, it's not trying to be mean to those 3 teams, but it's like, it's the truth. Like, San Diego, LMU, and Pepperdine have not been anywhere near significant like Gonzaga or St. Mary's is. And then, what's their face? Pepperdine hasn't really had too much postseason success. They won the CIT a few years ago, which I guess that's some hardwood. I'll give them some credit. It was 2 years ago, back in the COVID year. They won the CIT, and they brought home some hardwood. Hooray! But that's about it. All right, that's going to do it for the NCAA men's basketball portion of the show. I'm just going to briefly inform everybody that USC women's hoops is no longer undefeated. I think I mentioned this last week that they lost to USC, which made me sad face. But I had this strange feeling that USC wasn't going to be undefeated for too long, just because UCLA is surging at the right time, and USC's schedule is starting to pick up. Prior to being undefeated at 9-0, USC had no significant wins, and then when they played UCLA at Galen Center, they were tough. They battled UCLA tooth and nail, but they fell by 3 last Thursday. And then on Sunday, they lost to Texas in the Pac-12 Coast to Coast Challenge, 62-48. Fortunately for USC, they did get back on track as they managed to beat St. Mary's 71-45. I want to say that would be a good win, though St. Mary's was 7-4 going into that game. So it's like, That's probably their best win of the season. But USC's schedule is really going to pick up, as they've got Oregon State next Friday, which won't be an easy game. Then they've got Oregon, which is ranked, UCLA, which is ranked, Cal, which has 2 losses, Stanford, which is the number 2 team in the nation, Washington State, which is 10-2, Washington, which is 9-2, Utah, which is undefeated and is number 12, Colorado, which is 10-3, and then Arizona State, which isn't overly bad. So you get what I'm trying to say. The schedule is really going to pick up for USC women's hoops, and this is really going to test the Trojans or the women of Troy on if they can hang with some of these Pac-12 teams. If not, it was just their schedule just being significantly bad. But for USC women's hoops, it's still a good start to their season. They do have the number 1 recruit coming in for the class of 2023, coming out of Sierra Canyon. I think it was like Jada Williams or something like that. Either way, they are getting a big, significant player next season, so the future is looking bright for the Trojans, and hopefully they can keep it bright. Just please, USC women's hoops. They've seen better days. All right, that's going to do it for college hoops action. We've got to jump to the NBA, and I just found out that Anthony Davis of the Los Angeles Lakers is out indefinitely, so that's a horrible start to the Christmas year. The good news is for the Lakers is that they play the Charlotte Hornets tonight. While it is the Charlotte Hornets and they are surprisingly 8-24. Yes, the Charlotte Hornets are 8-24. Notice how the Charlotte Hornets are 8-24. The numbers of the late Kobe Bryant, who, ironically enough, was drafted by the Charlotte Hornets and then traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. So that's pretty eerie if you ask me. And it's going to be played at the Crypto.com Arena, which I guess I should mention that this is the 1-year anniversary of when the Lakers played their last game at the Staples Center before renaming it to the Crypto.com Arena. It will forever be the Staples Center. Don't argue with me on that. Anyway, so Lakers play the Charlotte Hornets, which I guess that's cool. They should win that one. This past Wednesday, the Lakers lost to the Sacramento Kings 134-120, which was a complete kick in the face. And then they also lost to the Phoenix Suns 130-104. On Sunday, the Lakers beat the Washington Wizards in very close fashion, 119-117. They actually won off of a Thomas Bryant go-ahead dunk, which LeBron James nearly lost the ball, but then he was able to get control over it again and then skip it out to Thomas Bryant for the dunk. And then the Lakers survived. And then on Friday, the Lakers actually, hence the word actually, they managed to actually beat the Denver Nuggets, which is a pretty good win if you ask me. They beat them 126-104. That was the game where Anthony Davis got injured, which was no bueno. So for the Lakers, it's still been such a rough season for them. They're still the worst team in the division, though they're not too far back of Golden State, which is just as bad. And the Lakers currently are the 13th seed, which, again, they're not too far back of the 10th seed. They're only 2.5 games back. But it's probably the longest 2.5 games back that they're ever going to get, especially with Anthony Davis out yet again. So after the Lakers play the Hornets, they play at the Dallas Mavericks on Christmas Day, which that's probably going to go as well as Lakers fans think that it's going to go. And then they have their 6-game Part 2 Grammy road trip as they start the Grammy road well, actually, they've kind of started it right. No, they started on Christmas Day. They start the second half of their Grammy road trip on Christmas Day. And then on Tuesday, they head down to the Sunshine State to take on the Orlando Magic. They have the Florida two-step as they have the Magic on Tuesday and then the Miami Heat on Wednesday. Well, that's going to be a big yikes right there, especially on the second of a back-to-back. Though they don't have to travel all that far. It's just going to go from Orlando all the way to Miami. So they could just they don't have to take a plane to get there, thankfully. And then next Friday, the Lakers close out the calendar year by playing the Atlanta Hawks. And then I guess I should make note of their last Grammy Part 2 road trip. They play the Charlotte Hornets on Monday to start the calendar year, and then they return home for a 2-game homestand against the Miami Heat and the Atlanta Hawks. But overall, that's pretty much the Lakers right there. It's a 5-game road trip, so it's a 5-game Grammy Part 2 road trip. And the reason I call it the Part 2 Grammy road trip is because the Lakers already had a road trip earlier in December, and this is kind of their round 2 or their second course. So that's pretty much that for the Lakers right there. And again, they're still struggling, but they're not overly bad. They're interesting, but they're bad. Jumping over to the Clippers. So the Clippers, here's the thing about the Western Conference. It's quite close, as the Clippers are only 1.5 games back of the number 1 spot in the Western Conference, as they have actually been on a little bit of a tear the past 2 games, as they beat the Charlotte Hornets 126-105 on Wednesday. Then last Saturday, they beat the Washington Wizards 102-93. And then, like I mentioned last Thursday, they lost to the Phoenix Suns 111-95. Though this month, they've won 5 of their last 6, which is pretty good, as they hit the road to the land of brotherly love to take on the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, they've kind of got a little bit of a Grammy road trip going on as well, as it's kind of like their round 2 of their Grammy road trip. As it's a 5-game road trip, just like the Lakers, as they have the Sixers tonight. On Monday, they travel to the Motor City to take on the Detroit Pistons. Tuesday, they head up north to take on the Toronto Raptors. That's the second of a back-to-back, mind you. Yikes. And then on Thursday, they head down to Beantown to take on the Boston Celtics. And then next Saturday, they close out the calendar year when they play the Indiana Pacers. So, realistically, this is the best chance for the Clippers to get some wins, especially against the Raptors, Pistons, and Pacers. And they could make up some big ground in the Western Conference. And who knows, maybe they could climb up and get at least close to the number 1 seed. And for a Clippers team that wasn't really expected to do a whole lot, they are kind of exceeding expectations. So the fact that they're only, half a game back of Phoenix in the division, as well as being 1.5 games back of first place, it's quite significant, and it helps that they have Kawhi Leonard back. Like, Kawhi Leonard has been crucial for them, and as well as Reggie Jackson and Paul George, and I guess maybe John Wall. But overall, the Clippers are actually doing good things, and I'm happy for them. I mean, do I think they can go deep and win the championship? I don't know. That still remains to be seen. It all depends on the Clippers' attrition. But overall, that is basically going to do it for the NBA portion of the show. Jumping on over to some NHL action. So, it's still been tough sledding for the Ducks, as I really got to talk about them. I'm just kidding. I'll talk about them. So for the Ducks, let's just rip the Band-Aid off swiftly. They lost to the Minnesota Wild on Wednesday 4-1. It was actually tied 1-1 after 2 periods, but then they wound up laying a goose egg in the third quarter, or the third period, and it's like, guys, really? And then they lost to their not their crosstown rival, it kind of is. Their crosstown rival, the LA Kings, 4-1, and yeah, the Kings, that went about as good as I expected it to. Kings were up. It was tied 1-1, and then Kings took the 2-1 lead into the third period, and then they just laid the wood down on the Ducks. And then last Saturday, the Ducks beat the Edmonton Oilers 4-3, as it was a miracle that didn't need overtime. And that was actually their second win in a row before the Kings and Wild decided to derail that. So the Ducks, like I said, they have quite the big homestand going forward, as tonight they play Calgary at 7:30. Then next Wednesday they welcome the Vegas Golden Knights. Next Friday they close out the calendar year against the Nashville Predators. And then in the month of January, again, their long homestand goes all the way up until the 16th of January, which again, that's quite the long homestand. So Ducks should enjoy playing at home while they can. At least they could try to get some sort of wins, because they can't get any worse than this. They're the worst team in the division, and if I'm not mistaken, they're the second worst team in the NHL ahead of the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm sorry to all the Blackhawks fans out there. My condolences. Anyway, going over to the LA Kings, it's been a little bit more smooth sailing for the Kings, as they are back in a second place in the Pacific Division, as they just beat their opponent, the Calgary Flames, in overtime 4-3, which was a very, very good win right there. I thought it was an impressive win, as Kempe had the game-winning goal, and it made me happy to see the Kings pull off that win. It was quite nice for them to get that win, as once again Adrian Kempe was able to knock in the game winner, and it was apparently, according to the Kings Twitter account, it was a juicy goal, which I like what I hear. I like that. It was a juicy goal. Juicier than any T-bone steak I've ever tasted. And like I said, the Kings beat the Ducks 4-1. We don't need to go over that. And we don't need to tear off that Band-Aid yet again. As, the Kings are basically California's savior when it comes to the NHL not being in shambles. As they also defeated the San Jose Sharks last Saturday in a shootout 3-2. And then they also, like I said, they beat the Boston Bruins 3-2 on the road, which was a significant win in my book, as the Kings have won 4 in a row, and they'll probably make it 5 when they play at the Arizona Coyotes tonight. Tuesday, they welcome the Vegas Golden Knights to the Crypto.com arena. And then Thursday, they close out the calendar year as they head up to the Rocky Mountains to take on the Colorado Avalanche. But it's really cool to see the Kings are significantly having the rise to power, and they're not even too far back of the Vegas Golden Knights. They're only 4 points back of the Golden Knights, as heck, that would be quite something for the Kings to go from, they finished 4th in the Pacific Division all the way up to 1st. I really think the Kings they're definitely the bright spot in terms of Southern California, in terms of the NHL. But they're mainly hockey's bright spot in terms of whatchamacallit. In terms of, they're California's bright spot in terms of the NHL. There you go. Because the Sharks are complete doo-doo, and the Ducks are even bigger doo-doo. So that's pretty much that for the LA Kings right there. And before we head on out here, we have to give out the Dum Dum of the Week award. The Dum Dum of the Week award goes out to an organization or someone that does something significantly dumb, and no one is safe from this award. Anyone can get this award. I was going to give it to the person that disrupted my little segment, the first half of the show, but I'm not going to. I can't do that shit. The person was just doing their job, and I couldn't pull myself to giving that person who knocked on the door Dum Dum of the Week. But I do have a mini Dum Dum of the Week to give out, and I hate to give this one out, but this goes out to a water polo coach. I'm not going to give away the name and the school that happened to have this water polo coach get this award, but this water polo coach unfortunately gets the mini Dum Dum of the Week because he told his team that he was significantly sick, and he eventually had to skip out on coaching a game on Monday. What he unfortunately made the mistake of doing was in reality, it was actually him going to his friend's wedding instead of calling in sick and saying that he hasn't been able to make it to a certain game. So instead of saying that he was sick, he actually went to his friend's wedding. And unfortunately, hence the word unfortunately, he actually managed to, get caught on social media going to his friend's wedding instead of being in bed sick. So There's the reason why he doesn't get the big Dum Dum of the Week award, or the full Dum Dum of the Week award, because he eventually stepped down and he admitted to the team and he said that he messed up big time and he does not expect any loyalty or forgiveness to be given to him within the team that he got that decided to give him his walking papers. And I think he went out on his own terms right there. So again, that it was so noble of this coach to basically step away and basically just give him his own walking papers to himself. If not, the school gave it to him. But the fact that he was noble and to say that he takes full responsibility of what he did and how he basically broke the trust to the team is basically unacceptable. And I agree. Like, as a coach, you're not supposed to really lie to your team. You're supposed to come out clean. And I understand he wanted to see his friend's wedding, and I don't know if it was his best friend or his childhood friend, but sometimes you got to sacrifice things as a head coach. Like, sometimes you got to sacrifice some of the fun things you have to do in order to basically work your job. Now, if this were basically like a small minor job, like working at the grocery store or working at a fast food restaurant, you could totally get away with the whole, "Oh, I'm sick, I can't come in." But if you're basically doing this as a head coach and you get caught, there are going to be major consequences. So again, I've also done that before. I've used the whole "I'm sick, I can't come in to work" excuse, or "I don't want to go to school" excuse because I'm sick. But when you have a significant job like that, you can't say I'm sick and then post on social media. That's another big no-no right there. You can't post on social media. Like, you just can't. Like, you just can't post on social media because what if your team is following you, or what if a parent is following you and they discover that instead of being sick in bed, you decide to actually go to your friend's wedding and miss out on coaching with the team. I'm just saying, like, again, there's a reason why he doesn't get Dum Dum of the Week, and he was noble enough to apologize to the team, and he went out on his own terms. But I'm sorry, dude, but you're the mini Dum Dum of the Week. Again, I'm not going to give out his name. I'm not going to give out the school that gave him his walking papers, or the school that basically he coached for. But this water polo coach, this guy's the Dum Dum of the Week. And yes, this person is a guy. He is Dum Dum of the Week, so I'm sorry. You're the mini Dum Dum of the Week. Sorry. All right, now for the actual Dum Dums of the Week. And oh my goodness, there's a lot of Dum Dums of the Week I have to go over. Like, I don't even know where to begin right here. Like, there's at least one I have to go over. So, you mentioned, remember when I told you that the Patriots lost to the Raiders? Yes, they lost to the Las Vegas Raiders. And as a Chargers fan, thank you to the Las Vegas Raiders for beating the New England Patriots. You have helped out the Chargers in terms of their path to the playoffs. So, how the Patriots lost is why they're Dum Dum of the Week. So, and I don't want to rag on the player that caused this, but so it was 24-24, and the Patriots were going to try to score to try to win the game. Because, like I said earlier, you play to win the game. You don't play for overtime. Apparently, the Patriots did not get that memo. I guess I should also mention that the Patriots were down 17-3 at halftime, came back to lead 24-17. Raiders got a controversial touchdown, which unfortunately did not have enough evidence to overturn. And then here's what happened. So 24-24, it's the last play of the game, and I want to say Mac Jones handed the ball off to Ramondre Stevenson. He managed to scamper up the field. I think he got to like the 39, and then he pitched the ball back or dumped the ball back off to Jacoby Myers. And unfortunately for Jacoby Myers, he threw the ball back to the Raiders logo, or midfield, and then Chandler Jones, Jacoby Myers tried to pitch it back to Mac Jones, but instead he found the wrong Jones, Chandler Jones, as Chandler Jones picked off the pass, and he stiff-armed Mac Jones into the ground, and he returned it for a touchdown. That was how the Raiders lost to, that was how the Patriots lost to the Raiders. I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, wait, what's going on here? Because I was still focusing on the Chargers-Titans, but then I see the Raiders won, and they won in the most ridiculous way, and I'm like, what? Okay, there are multiple things wrong with this picture, okay? First of all, why did the Patriots just not take a knee and go into overtime? You don't trust your defense enough to get a stop or a turnover to put yourself into field goal range, or get yourself into field goal range and make the game-winning kick with Nick Folk. Like, that's just crazy. Second of all, you don't trust your offense in overtime to get a touchdown. The Raiders have one of the worst defenses in the league. Third, why are you lateraling it backwards when Chandler Jones is right there, right on top of Mac Jones? And lastly, it's like, how do you lose in that fashion? Like, there are multiple weird ways to lose and have one of the worst plays happen, such as the Colts versus the Patriots in I think it was the AFC Championship game, or the divisional round, or the butt fumble, or any sort of thing like that. But my goodness, you lost in that fashion. You lost off of a walk-off defensive touchdown via a failed lateral. I don't know who drew up that play. I don't know what Jacoby Myers was thinking, but the New England Patriots, normally, this just goes to show how far the Patriots have dropped after the Tom Brady era. I know they made the playoffs last year, but they got one and done badly by the Bills. But for the New England Patriots losing in that fashion against the Raiders, who seem to always lose in some sort of weird fashion, you are this week's Dum Dum of the Week award, New England Patriots. Wait. Talk to the people, man. Talk to the people. Talk to those people, my man.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
My goodness gracious. How do you lose that game in that fashion? How? But there's another Dum Dum of the Week I kind of have to give out, and this one isn't for anything in terms of football. This has to deal with a mistake that somebody made on social media. So, for those of you that don't know, I am the host of iSports Radio's volleyball show, Set Point. And a follow that I normally like to an account that I normally follow for all the transfer news is college volleyball transfers. It's a very significant tool, or a very significant follow for volleyball fans such as myself, or for volleyball hosts such as myself, and it's very handy, and I really like following it. So, what had happened is this, but you're probably wondering, well, what's the Dum Dum of the Week for? Well, here's the thing. So, college volleyball transfers, the Twitter account, or Instagram account, depending on what your preference is, they actually have, here's what they do. They normally post the person that is in the transfer portal, or that is hitting the transfer portal, or someone that has transferred in the transfer portal. So, normally they post their, if this thing wants to cooperate all that well, they normally post the person that is the name, the person that is the name of the person, the position that they play, the class that they're in, whether it's like sophomore, junior, senior, or redshirt freshman, redshirt sophomore. You get the picture. They post their grade level and then the college that they go to, and then they put hashtag college VB transfers as well as hashtag NCAA women's volleyball. What they also do is they post a graphic of a picture, and they also post a picture of the said athlete. But what they did, which is probably not anything that they should have done, was this. So they actually managed to post a picture of a certain transfer, but they used probably one of the worst things that they could do, they did do, as they posted a picture of said transfer, but it wasn't really the best picture to use, as I don't know if this is going to get the explicit tag or not, but they posted a picture of the volleyball player in a not so appropriate pose. And I was like, and I looked at this transfer from the college volleyball transfer news. I'm like, what in the world? Why is she doing that pose? And oh my goodness. And there were some people that had many problems with this. There was one person in particular. I'm not going to give out the name of this player, but there was this one person that replied to the college volleyball Twitter account saying you couldn't find any other pics of her. Not her, do I have to say it, busting it down for the transfer portal. You could pretty much envision, I'm not going to, like I said, it's not an appropriate pose. I'm not going to basically describe the pose. It's just, that's what this guy said. It was a picture of someone busting it down, and that's not the Dum Dum of the Week. That's not where the Dum Dum of the Week award ends right there for college volleyball transfers. Apparently, the person that called out college volleyball transfers on Twitter actually got blocked by college volleyball transfers. No, that person wasn't me, but it's like you get called out for something that you did, and you block the person just because you couldn't handle the truth. Okay, first of all, the guy that actually replied and said that wasn't trying to be disrespectful. He actually made a point. And eventually, college volleyball transfers took down the girl busting it down that entered the transfer portal. However, it's like you can't just block somebody just because they made a good point. And that is incredibly cowardly on college volleyball transfers. And eventually, someone was able to find an actual good portrait of the person, which I think, well, bravo to this person. It said, it took me all of 3 seconds to look up said person's name from said person said team they are transferring from, and find this much more professional looking photograph than what was posted here. That's a photo for social media or dating apps, not when you're trying to secure funding for your future. And I agree. I totally agree with that. And the fact that college volleyball transfers had to block this person, whose name I'm not going to give out, is unacceptable. I think they could have handled that a much better way. They could have probably just messaged that person saying, hey, can you please take down what you said? It's not appropriate. We don't like it. Blah, 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 blah. And they did the right thing by deleting it, but once it reaches the internet, it's going to pretty much stay on the internet. Like, people have their receipts. You just can't use pictures like that. You just can't do no things like that. Like, I don't know if the transfer wanted that picture as a picture of the transfer portal, but college volleyball transfers could have done a whole lot better. So college volleyball transfers, on whoever runs that Twitter or Instagram account, who basically posted the transfer, who's basically in a pose of busting it down, you are this week's Dum Dum of the Week Award number 2.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And that, my friends, is all she wrote. You gotta be careful on the internet, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot afford to be the victim of the internet. Like, if you misspell someone's name, that's understandable, but you just can't do anything that dumb. Like, I know people make mistakes, I understand, but it's like, that is the biggest mistake I have ever seen. Like, where's the logic? Make it make sense. Make it make sense of why you would use that photo over a professional photo. This is why we have Google. Just type in what you want, and you'll hopefully get a professional photo. It's like, why do I even bother nowadays? And I have to also give the mini Dum Dum of the Week award to the Indianapolis Colts for blowing a 33-point lead. But that's not, I mean, I could give them the Dum Dum of the Week award, but I'm giving out too many Dum Dums of the Week awards. So I think that is going to do it for this week's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time to get on out of here, because I got me some chores to do around the house, because my brother's coming to town. You dig? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I really do appreciate you all tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, even in the wee hours of the morning, even at work, even on a train, even on a plane, even in a car, even from afar, I really do appreciate you. Shout out to the chat room with Larry B, who had lots of fun in the chat room. Shout out to Adam Karnick and Mike Patton for also popping in, as well as my boy Courtney Hardin. I really do appreciate y'all supporting this show. Thank you to those that continue to support iSports Radio and to Larry B for all that he does for iSports Radio. Your hard work does not go unnoticed. Next week, we will have the final calendar episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. We'll have a fun show. We'll have some of the notable dum-dums of the week forward, though I kind of lost track of it. We'll have some of the best moments that happened in SoCal sports. We'll have all sorts of laughs, funs, and another dum-dum week to close out the calendar year. But until then, you'll have yourself a great rest of the week. Stay safe. Happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, happy Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. Have yourself a great, safe holiday, and make sure you are not dumb. Don't be dumb, otherwise you'll be getting more than told. You'll be even dumb for Christmas. I'll see you on Monday for Set Point. Have a great weekend, and remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace!